else coming down?
Yeah.
All right.
All right, and make sure they learn something because I told the nurses I'd buy them coffee if they learn anything.
Thank you, nurses. So we'll start off with, how did you guys feel going into the room or being near that room, seeing this patient coming in? So agitated.
I think honestly and realistically, knowing that it was Lawrence, I was less afraid to go in and do things, you know, but I think maybe like medical students had no idea who he was because again, just the regular acting movie was a bit.
Yeah, I was going to say, I didn't see too many people go in the room or get too close to the door.
That was going to really hurt me, but I mean.
My heart was like racing, even though I knew it was like a mock code and everything. We were just talking about, we were like, well, what would we have done in a real situation? And like probably as medical students, there were tons of people in the room, and we felt like we would kind of just be on the periphery. But yeah, it's definitely.
So I guess I wasn't sure like how, because typically you're like keep yourself safe, so call security and keep yourself safe. But at the same time, when he ran into the room and started going through the cabinets, then I didn't know at that point, is my role like it doesn't matter, like just he's now doing lots of stuff on the wall and he can start hurting himself. Should I just step in and like, because as a medical student to residency, it's like step away, and so I didn't know in this case though if he was so out of control if I should have just. Like, should we have all just sort of jumped
So we'll get to that in one moment. I just want to get people's feelings. I know it's hard because we don't often talk about our feelings. So the medical students mentioned talking about being scared and unsure what to do in a real situation. Any of the residents want to comment how they felt? Carolyn, as the team leader, how did you feel? Not reflecting on the medicine or what you did.
So I come from a teacher background in high school students, and I live at a boarding school. So I don't have I guess I felt like, oh, you're not going to throw this at me. I was like,
so you felt tough.
Don't even start. I know, and that's stupid because I shouldn't have gotten in his way. Like as soon as I did it, I was like, oh, that's bad. You're being too. But I've had a couple situations. I've had a situation at least once where I was waiting for security and I had two parents yelling at each, physically. And at that time, I sort of got myself in between them, but that wasn't an agitated psych patient, so it is a different situation. I'm gonna beat you up once. No.
And how about our police officers, our security team? How did you guys feel?
Just another day.
Any thoughts that you have coming into it from the outside? What? Just another day. Okay. And nurses' feelings?
So I felt scared for the other patients. I went around and shut the doors because we have kids here, so he was adult size. I was nervous about how big he looked, his strength, and like what he could have done to our other patients. So I went around and shut some doors because you know that everybody would be coming out here watching. So it would have just added to the chaos. Everything.
And the patient, how did you feel? As the patient, not as Lawrence.
Oh. I mean, intimidated, I guess. I mean, for the fact that I was like everywhere I turned, there was someone there, and certainly being restrained, being pinned down. Certainly, I think potentially made things worse, I guess, so to speak, from a patient standpoint. After the held on out of it, I don't remember much of that.
So to summarize the feelings, scared, tough, scared for other patients, intimidated. So I think Michelle's going to lead into all those questions we were asking about the medicine now. So you guys had some questions to start off, so maybe we could start with trying to answer those. So what were the questions that you guys were asking?
So I think Tanya and I were just talking that we've never had a patient come in via EMS not already restrained. And they may have to stay on that EMS stretcher and be totally pissed off and agitated, but my only experience was with a drunk kid who's a lot easier to who got agitated as the alcohol kicked in further and we had to restrain at that point. So I just wasn't, it's not our usual MO, and so getting them, how do we corral that patient? How do we get them down?
And how do you do it on the floor when the patient becomes agitated? Because you don't have security. You don't have all the resources we have down here. I don't even know where or if you guys have 4-point restraints up on the floor.
They have soft points on the floor.
They have yeah, they do, because we do have situations where we have to, but then, I wouldn't know where to go pull them. The nurses know where they
So
are.
quick review in terms of calling for help, and I wasn't aware of this as much until yesterday when Karen let us know, so I can't blame you guys for not being aware. There are 3 emergency call switches in here. So one is back here, one is at triage up front, and this is what it looks like. It's typically under the desk. And one is at the BA's desk up front. But I was interested to hear that when we press that, where does it go?
To our dispatch center, and they would dispatch us.
Okay. So if
So
we
a
were,
lot of times it's easier if a nurse
Just
or
to
somebody
send
will
out
say,
for
we need you back
security.
there.
Yeah.
okay. So and I thought that was awesome. You guys did that straight away, calling for help, getting people that are trained in this and that have, you know, experience with this. That it is an everyday experience as opposed to for us where it's certainly not.
Something else you can always remember too, I mean, this is an emergency situation. You can always push the code button, especially if you are in a room
Yeah.
cornered by a patient. I mean, if you walk in a room and he gets between you and the door,
Call
that should be
the
the
code
first thing
button,
you do, is to push that code button so that you get help in there. Because the last thing you want to have happen is have you trapped in a room with a patient who's agitated, disoriented, and potentially dangerous to you.
And on the floor, I would urge you guys to. This is a code. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not, and we'll talk about that a little more.
So, you guys had some questions about the medication dosing.
Yeah, I just didn't know
What
what
to give.
how all of the, I mean, I know the psych guy, like, and what they do on the floor when we have a kid who's a psych on peds and potentially we get agitated. Generally, we have Ativan and Haldol on call, but do I know the Haldol dose? Because it's a rare kid that's on the floor that actually is going to need it, and often we don't even have it ordered as a PRN because most
Sure.
of those kids are going to be fine. So, but I had a good helper who found it right away for me.
So 5 milligrams is the typical dose of Haldol, although you can go lower for little kids. It's hard to dose per kilo.
Yeah.
In children, it's more of flat dosing. So sometimes people will do a half dose of 2.5 if you've got a little kid, or something that's slightly less agitated. Although if you're using Haldol, you're at your end point there. You're at your peak agitation. Lawrence came in, or Bob, I'm sorry, came in already extremely agitated and dangerous to himself and to potentially to other people as well. So this would not be a scenario where you would sort of start low and move upwards. You guys went straight for the Haldol and Ativan. Typically, if I've got a patient who's this agitated, I'm going to do them as a combo. Just 1, 2,
Yeah.
get
I
them
think
in.
we could have done it sooner, but then we were stuck with the allergies, which is important. I mean, but then it's like, what are we gonna, like, if you're that agitated, do you give, I mean, would you just go ahead, so we're waiting on the call from the school, would you,
I would.
just do it
Absolutely
and get
would.
it in them?
So the only real contraindication to giving Haldol is prolonged QT syndrome, which is going to be pretty rare. And he's a danger to himself now, as it is. So I would actually go ahead and
Just do it as soon as he hits the, as soon as we can
try
get him stable.
try your best to get a
steady
medical
enough.
history. Try your best to get allergies. Try to get your patient information. And sometimes you can just look them up quickly in the computer system, find something out that way. But treat
Yeah,
the
that would have been the
agitation.
other,
Yeah. And if kids, 9 times out of 10, kids are not going to come in this severely agitated of a state. So they're going to be coming in, and there are different kinds of restraints. There are 3 different kinds of restraint. There's the physical restraints, which we did with Lawrence. The 4-point locking restraints are what you need to do for optimal safety for the patient. If they're really, really agitated, you can place them prone and put them down. If they're bucking and really intent on hurting themselves, that's really, really out of control. Softer restraints can be dangerous because kids can actually wrestle themselves at having them. So the 4-point blocking restraints are really the best situation for somebody who's acutely agitated like this. Just something to think about. The softer restraints have long strings, they get a hold of them, they can choke themselves through. It can be dangerous. Physical restraints are rarely necessary though. You've got your chemical restraints that you can do, and a lot of times you can actually talk to kids. So these kids are coming in, they feel terrible. They're disoriented, they don't know reality from fantasy. a lot of times they've got voices telling them horrible things, they're feeling suicidal, they're feeling homicidal, they know they're out of control, they want help if you can make connection with them and say, I'd like to give you something to help you feel less out of control, to help you feel like you're more in control of yourself. Sometimes they'll cooperate with you and take oral medication, which is always helpful. And you can give choices. I actually heard somebody giving him a choice in the room.
We can stop. It was one of the nurses. We can stop holding me down if you stop with me. I think it was that. Like that was the choice.
Yeah. So a lot of times you can get kids to cooperate with oral medications. He would not have.
I don't even remember anybody.
And just to be clear in terms of the
We do have
methodology
stuff
and the evidence to approaching this, so that's verbal restraint, which is using some of those techniques, which I don't think we have time to talk in detail about today, but making a patient feel comfortable, giving them choices, making them feel safe, physical restraint and chemical restraint, and there's certainly a lot of risk to physical restraint and chemical restraint. And if you're not familiar, it might be worth looking up some data in the Hartford Courant, which actually brought to light issues with physical restraint across the country and a whole bunch of deaths related to pediatric patients in Connecticut because of physical restraint and the techniques used for that. So physical restraint can be a very dangerous thing. You guys probably know more about this than we do in terms of techniques and other things, but I would encourage you guys and the nurses to think about it as a code. So what would we do in a code situation if we were giving meds or doing something that had potential for harm or danger? How would we approach a code situation?
So you're documenting everything.
Okay. What's an important thing that always comes up in mock codes and real codes in terms of the team?
Who's the leader?
Yeah. So having the code team leader and having assigned roles and making sure everyone shares an idea of what's going on. So does that sort of make sense? So as the team leader, even if you're not as experienced with restraint, trying to make sure everyone's on the same page, that you're all thinking about the same things, and that your team's staying safe. So maybe not being hands-on, just like you wouldn't take the airway in a medical code, not being hands-on and holding the patient down. So there were a number of safety issues for you and the patient that came up. So one is the physical restraint and the safety issues related to that. I think that the security officers were here and did a very good job in helping you guys with the physical restraint. Any things that you have to add in terms of techniques for physical restraint or what you'd like from the medical staff in these type of situations?
I would say that the best course of action is just to get it on, and once you get the patient secured, then you can go back and check to make sure they're loose enough, they have, circulations going between the restraints. Because the important thing right now is just to get them in a secure location so you guys can do what you guys have to do. So get them all locked down, get them restrained, get them tightened down, then have somebody, after the medical things are happening, have somebody assigned to the restraints. Okay, I need to check all 4 of these restraints.
And in terms of getting the restraint on, if either it's just one of you or 2 of you, there's 4 extremities. So what can we do, or what techniques can we do to help to make sure it's done appropriately and safely?
Kids kick. Kids like to kick more than they punch. But the bigger and older kids like to punch. So I would say if you can get a leg and an arm first, that way he or she is secured to the bed or the stretcher, then that would be your best course of action. Get somebody to go for a leg, get somebody to go for an arm. And then have 2 other people just right out the other arm and right out the other leg. If you're bucking up and down, hey, so be it. Until you can get those other 2 on.
I noticed you guys using some verbal restraint techniques as well. I don't know if that was intentional or just
Well, what I said to them initially was once we got them onto the bed was as soon as you gain control, then we can let you go. And one of the ways to gain control is show me that you're not going to fight.
So there was one thing that I noticed that security did